How's it going, everyone? And welcome to Animal Talk Podcast with me, your host, Ryne Ferguson.
And me, Ayrton King.
Hi, Ayrton. How's it going?
Hey, Ryne. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad at all. Really excited about this new podcast again and getting another episode out.
Ryne, I love that you don't seem to stop getting excited about these podcasts, which is great.
I love it. I love it because I love talking about this type of stuff. And you know what? I can't get enough about the fact that you and I can just chat and people are listening and learning. And that's the best thing about it.
It's a win-win-win.
Win-win situation. What are we talking about? What are we going to be talking about today?
So I thought today we could talk about getting into the industry of being a zookeeper or aquarist or just working in the animal industry because when I speak to a lot of high school students and even students that are at university, even if they're studying marine sciences or marine biology or zoology, they don't really know how to actually break through into the industry. So I thought maybe we could chat about that today.
I love that. Yes, let's do it. It is one of the more challenging things, and it's actually one of the things that a lot of people come to me, or parents will bring their children and say, how can my child get into this industry? Because they're showing interest in specific species or just the zoo setting and all of that. And it's always a good question, and it's always not an easy one to always answer because there's so many different means and ways to get involved. When I started out, I didn't go into university or get any qualifications. Even before I left high school, that I kind of spoke about more in episode 1 of Animal Talk Podcast, which you're welcome to go back and listen to. It was all about me just volunteering and getting involved in places. And that's actually how my career moved forward, is just literally putting myself in those situations where I could learn as much as I possibly could about the industry and about specific species.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're just saying that's very similar path for me. Often when we do have students and we're talking to them, it's always, the question is, what do I need to go study at university level? And my answer is always like, well, I didn't go to university. I also started out through volunteering. I did a course through the aquarium, and through that course, it enabled me to be a volunteer during high school. And from volunteering, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for that course that I did in high school, which is insane to think about it in that way, how one decision can really change your life.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like those little things that you made a decision about going to that course or that conference or that workshop that actually changes so much of how you progress inside the community.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that also the one quote that always sticks in my mind, because so it's a bit of a story, but basically when I was growing up, I would always come to the aquarium as a kid. My parents, I was very fortunate to be able to experience the aquarium growing up, and a lot of animal facilities as well. Whenever we would go on holiday, my family would always, take me to all these different facilities. And growing up, I was fortunate enough to come to the aquarium probably every school holidays. It was the one thing I always remember my parents saying to me, what do you want to do? It was always like the last day of school holidays. What do you want to do today before you go back to school? And it was always, I want to go to the aquarium. And I grew up visiting the aquarium, and then I became a member of the aquarium. And basically what that allows for me as a member is you get all these like cool elite member events. And one of them was a behind the scenes tour at the aquarium. And then I got to see the going ons behind the scenes. And that really just pushed me into wanting to be more involved. And then in high school, I got the opportunity to apply for this volunteer program. And I was actually unsure if I wanted to do it. And I remember one of my teachers saying to me, what are you like nervous about? Because it's like such a great opportunity. And for me, I just felt like almost like it was so out of my comfort zone. And the quote that my teacher gave me at that time was, a comfort zone is an unhealthy zone. And from that quote and from that moment, I was like, right, I'm going to try and do this and see if I like it. And literally, like, here I am 10 years later. And if I had not done that, I wouldn't be working at the same facility that I am today.
Amazing. You see, it's all those little things that happen. And it's about the connections that you make with people as well. You know, when you go to these facilities, talk to people, talk to the keepers. You see them there, chat with them, find out a little bit of stuff. That's really, you know, one very important thing to do, and get them to know you, because also they might know people that could help you get into something that you're really interested in. And that brings me to the next topic, and that is finding some sort of niche that you're excited about. For me, it was always birds. And I mean, I've stepped out of that now and then into different species, but birds have always been the stronghold for me. So that was my niche.
Yeah, I think it's also important to realize just how many different niches there are. I think that's what I was really grateful for. And that's why I would encourage any person wanting to go into the industry is to try volunteer at an organization, because not only do you get hands-on experience, but also you get to see all the different roles that happen in the organization. And for me,
and something that you might like in that role.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Or even more importantly, something you might not like. For me, it's always been animal training and animal behavior. And, you know, even though I don't work with the group of animals that you would think you can train, as we've already spoken about, that's still the passion for me that comes through.
Guess what? You can.
I have stuck to what I'm passionate about. And that, you know, that's the cool thing is, you know, even if there isn't that niche at that facility right now and right then you know what? Stick to your guns and make a niche, because it is possible. And yeah, just find that niche that you like, or not necessarily that you like, but that you're passionate about, because ultimately that's what needs to, like, that passion needs to drive you through all those tough times and different things that you do like and don't like, to actually get you to the end result where you find your passion.
You know, I love the fact that you brought up passion, because it's one thing that actually drives your career. If you don't have passion for what you're doing, and it's in any career I've picked up anywhere, it's not just this industry, but quite importantly this industry, you have to be passionate about what you're doing, because it needs to not feel like a job. Otherwise, when it starts to feel like a job, you don't want to change things up and you don't want to do things better. So you've got to be passionate about it. And I think that's a very important thing to say to somebody who's wanting to get into the industry, is you need to be a passionate person, and you need to be passionate about exactly what you're wanting to do within the industry.
No, for sure. So something else that's also just come to mind when you say that is, you know, as much as you can have a passion, like either passion for working with the animals, you also need to think about the people aspect, because not only do we work in a facility that has lots of animals, but we rely on education and we rely on public coming to view our facility. And when you are working with animals, and whether it's, you know, sitting in front of the exhibit and observing them, there is going to be a time where you have to engage with public. You have to engage with people. And even if you're not a people person, you have to really just dig deep, find that passion that's driving you, and share that passion, because that passion, if you can, I always think of it like a little flame. If you can have that passion and you can set that passion off in a young kid that you're speaking to, that is just like, it's so important and so special. Coming back to my stories, one story I want to share with you, Ryne. I don't know if I've shared this one before, but basically when I think I was like 6, I was really, really young, and we went to Baywold in Port Elizabeth, and it was still the time when they had the oceanarium and they had the dolphins, and we saw a dolphin show, and like any kid would, you are literally captivated by these magnificent animals. Afterwards, I was hanging around and we went to the underwater viewing area, and one of the dolphins came up to the underwater viewing window and interacted with me as a 6-year-old kid through the window. And I was just so taken aback. And that is literally a memory that lives in my mind, like rent free. And from that experience, my mom then dragged me by my arm up to the top level of the exhibit and found the trainer, and immediately just like started speaking and like, this is my son. And he really wants to be involved when he's older. And I'm like, I'm 6. But my mom's already planning my career for me, which was great. I appreciate that moment now.
That's great.
But the trainer at the time spoke to me as a 6-year-old kid. He spoke to me as an individual, as a person, and was so passionate, and really just that from that moment inspired me. And from then, there was one of the major deciding factors that I want to know animal training and I want to know animal behavior. And it's literally from that 6-year-old me that's now where I am. So it's so important when you are communicating that also realize the impact that you have on, smaller, I call them small people, the smaller young people that are walking around, because you do have an impact. Yeah.
Yeah, those interactions make a big difference. And you mentioned about the dolphin coming up to the window and interacting with you. You know how many animals interact with public through either our education programs or things like that inspire people to do the jobs that we do, or even inspire them to preserve wildlife or natural spaces more. And that is the niche, that is the most important thing about our facilities. And it comes down to our jobs as well, is making sure that we educate the public about how important wildlife is or nature is, and we conserve it, because that's the only way we're going to be able to preserve what we have, because we're already destroying everything that we possibly can. But we need people to start learning to love nature and love wildlife and love animals. And the only way for them to really experience it in a close setting and get to know those animals is through our facilities. And it's through our behavior and our passion and what we put across in our education speeches that really helps. So again, it comes back down to passion. Making sure that you are passionate about the work that you're going to be doing is so important when coming into a facility or wanting to work at a facility like this.
No, definitely, for sure. Even when something that I didn't even realize initially when I started diving more often was I would always talk about how we target train, like the stingrays, for example, and how it's through positive reinforcement. When you get the desired behavior that you want, you reinforce with something that the animal enjoys and likes. And I never realized until fairly recently that, that connection is sometimes missed when you explain it like that to a kid. But a really easy way to bring it down to their level and also spark that passion is saying, hey, do you have a pet at home? Do you have a dog? Do you train your dog? When your dog does something, you give it a treat, right? So also just bringing it down to kids' level, to something that they can understand, and also then spark that interest in the animals that they do have at home. If they have a dog or a cat, of course they don't have a stingray at home, but they can train their dog and they can look at different behaviors that their pets do. So also bringing that, it brings it to a point where it's at home for them. And I think also when it's at home for you, it also makes a difference.
Please, no one go out and get a stingray and take it home. It's not recommended.
Yeah, no, not recommended. And trust me, it's a lot of work.
I can definitely agree with that one.
So, Ryne, you were also saying just making connections is really, really important. And like you said, making connections with keepers when you go to different facilities. But there's actually another easy way. And that is definitely with conferences and workshops. There's so many, places online that you can see online courses. There's even different organizations that offer even free online courses that look really good on a CV. So I think it's really important to also go out there and look at all those different opportunities. That there are some free ones. There are some that you do have to pay for. On social media, there's keeper groups, there's Facebook animal keeper groups, animal training groups. So there's a lot of resources out there that I think anyone can use if you want to learn more about the industry, if you want to learn about how to get into the industry, and also just making those connections with people that are in the industry. I know I get a lot of messages sometimes over social media, like through Instagram, because my Instagram page, I do show quite a bit of, what I do. And I get a lot of messages from people saying, hey, I'm in high school, I'm at university, I'm studying this, and I really want to know more about the industry that you're in, and I want to pursue a career. How do I go about doing it? So it's so important to think about all those resources and use those resources that we do have at our disposal.
Yeah, 100% agree with that one. Those conferences, those workshops, those things get you ready into the nitty-gritty of being in the industry. And I think that's also where the volunteering comes in as well. You've got to get to know the product that you're about to go into, if that makes sense. It's so, so important.
No, for sure. That hands-on experience and physically being there, and seeing what goes on in the industry
makes a huge difference.
Compared to what you see online or what you see on a website or what you can read about. Being physically in that line of work. I know a lot of high school students, they do something called job shadowing. That's also a great opportunity. And I mean, this doesn't also have to be only for young people leaving, high school or going to university. This can be for anybody. At any stage in your life, you can choose to change your career and do something different. And I feel like it's honestly never too late to go into something that you're passionate about, as long as that passion's there.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, so it's not just about the captive side of things. You can also get involved in the conservation and wildlife side as well. There's many other organizations like rehabilitation centers, conservation places, like reserves and parks you can get involved in. You want to get involved in animals in that sense and not in captivity. So we're not really saying that there's just that niche of just being in captive situation. There's so many different aspects, and you have to sort of go out there and experience some of them and just see what your vibe is with those type of situations and those different places. I know when I started out, and this is also in episode 1, I was actually doing guided tours in a nature reserve. That's how I pretty much started out. And that got me more involved in another place which was neighboring there, and that was more of a captive situation. And then it got me involved in another place and another place. So it sort of built on, and I changed it a little bit. I still really love going out and taking people into walks and having a look at wildlife and plants and all of those type of things. And I also do like the captive side. I do enjoy, training, educating, doing shows, all of that type of stuff. So there's ways you can move around and get those different things. And even now where I am now, I still get the opportunity to teach people and for people to learn about wildlife and the things that I'm passionate about.
Yeah, like the only thing I can relate this to from my side is we have a lot of friends and people that I know that they really want to be involved in that hands-on conservation side of things. I know one place here in Cape Town is Sandcob. They do a lot of work with, obviously, seabirds. And that hands-on experience, as you mentioned, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in a zoo or aquarium, but, there's so many, not only rehabilitation facilities, but also rescue organizations. I mean, hands-on experience can be everything from, dogs and cats, right through to seabirds, there's so many different organizations out there that you can get involved in, where you can get exposed to husbandry, which is important.
Oh yes, definitely important. And husbandry, let's touch a little bit on that part.
Let's unpack that.
Because husbandry, a lot of people see working in, let's go with captive for now. They see working in a zoo setting or an aquarium setting where you are, and they go, oh, it's all sparkles and rainbows, and it's so cool to be working with the fish, and it's so cool to be working with these birds, and it's so great. You do know that you have to pick up after them, and you have to prepare their food, which can be quite gross or daunting. Those things have to be chatted about, because a lot of people think it's all this glamorous thing. I mean, we had a lot of people come for interviews for presenting bird shows, and they just want to be out there on the stage and in all the glory, and then you tell them that they have to scrub bird poop off of a branch, and they have to remove pelican regurg out of the bowl. That's when they start backpedaling, and they're like, oh, that's not exactly what I was looking at doing.
Yeah, it's not always glamorous. I think for me, for like 8 years, I would come home every single day with like shoes filled with like sand from the penguin exhibit and penguin guano like over my jeans. And it would be to the point that like if I was getting a lift home, people that were lifting me would wind down their windows because I smelled like fish. So there.
And now you still smell like fish because you're working with fish.
Hey, you don't smell like fish that much when you work with the fish. I think the diving helps. It's a self-cleaning situation, but we'll unpack that in another episode. I think it's important to realize that it's not always glamorous. There are times where you have to literally get down on your hands and knees and scrub animal poo or clean the exhibit, and it's physical. There's a lot of physical work. I mean, even like you said, people perceive it as a great fun job, which it can be at times. But I mean, even for us in an aquarium, diving is extremely physical. It's not just getting in the water, feeding the animals, playing around with them. A lot of what we do is actually cleaning the substrate in the exhibit, which is what we call siphoning. And sometimes you are underwater cleaning sand for like 2 hours. So it's an extremely physical job that not everybody understands the amount of, physical time is taken to get in there and clean. I mean, especially the large exhibits.
Oh, for sure. I can only just imagine just having to clean all of that. I always think about that when I go to an aquarium. I'm like, you guys, I take my hat off to you guys having to clean that and clean the glass.
Yeah, you're basically a window cleaner.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you spend your time doing. Great.
Yeah.
So a lot of people see the glamorous side because they're seeing the end product of every bit of work that gets done behind the scenes. They're seeing these animals in these amazing enclosures, but that enclosure doesn't always look like that. It gets a little bit scruffed up throughout the day and through the night, and you have to fix it up and make it look more presentable. And that's what we do behind the scenes. That's what it is about being an animal keeper. And the other thing is having to prepare the food, prepare the diets for those animals. And that was another thing that people were just like, oh no, I can't touch raw fish. I just can't do it. Or no, I don't feel happy cutting up pieces of meat. So it's important to understand that these are the things that you're going to have to deal with. You're going to have to use your hands to cut these things. It's great. And yes, we've all got PPE and we've got gloves and whatever. But let's be honest, when you're cutting up a lot of food, you eventually do not want to have those gloves being cut all the time. You're just going to prepare and get that food out. And that's what you've got to do. You're going to touch gross things, slimy things. It's going to happen.
Yeah, so I think the one thing that we have a lot of fun with, especially when there's volunteers, is we sometimes have to deal with a lot of squid that we feed to some of the animals. And the squid eyes always tend to pop when you're busy cutting them. And the volunteers absolutely hate that, because then you have all this like ink that goes like all over your clothes. So that's something I remember from volunteering that I really didn't appreciate. But then now working at the facility I am now, we've got someone that's dedicated in the kitchen that does a lot of the food prep for us. And I'm always forever grateful for him because he does such an incredible job preparing our food for us. And I'm glad that I had that experience as a volunteer, because it just makes me appreciate the people I work with, because I know how much hard work goes into cleaning or feeding, the feed room, which is crazy. But I always say to, volunteers, like, it's a great place to actually learn. I know it doesn't sound very exciting, the feed room, but that is where you actually understand like where the food comes from, how it needs to be prepared, what size the food needs to be cut up. And I always joke with my family that I think all of my kitchen skills, like preparing food, actually comes from the chef at the aquarium who prepares our animal diets, because I learned how to use a knife and how to chop food. And literally that was all because I was volunteering, and thanks to our chef at work. Yeah.
Yeah. it's interesting also, like, how people perceive how the food gets, you want to make the food as natural in its form as possible. Everybody thinks it comes with a little, tied up all nicely and neat, and it's got a little bow on it, and then, no. It's like raw. It's how the animal needs to eat it. There's bone, there's all that type of stuff. That's, for example, on the meat side. It's also part of enrichment. You want to use those items as enrichment as well. And we work with a lot of stuff that's maybe not all too great to work with, but our animals absolutely love it. Let's think about a place that has lions and elephants, like one of the big zoos. If they take elephant dung and they put it in the lion enclosure, the lions go absolutely crazy for it because they want to roll in it, because they want to smell like the elephants so that other animals don't know or smell that they're coming. And that's enrichment. But you need to be able to be okay with picking up elephant poop and placing it into the lion enclosure.
Yeah, no, for sure. Literally, I was actually at a workshop at one of our zoos. It basically involved us doing enrichment for animals that we don't normally work with. So for our group, it was the caracal, because obviously we didn't have any caracals here at the aquarium. And what that literally involved was literally working with chicks, like dead chicks, and placing it in like pine cones. And that was a very different opportunity for me and different experience, because I'm really just used to like fish and fish. And yeah,
and fish.
So no chicks. I did work with a mole snake for part of my career, so I'm used to like dead rats and things like that. But the chicks was a new experience for me. So yeah.
Yeah, very important to know that that's going to be part of your job if you decide to step into this realm that we are in.
Yeah, it's a fun realm though. There's lots of fun that you can find in it.
Definitely. So yeah, if anybody has any questions about this topic, they want to put anything forward, please feel free to contact us on any of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram. We're also on YouTube. And leave a comment, like, subscribe. Make sure that you subscribe, because then you will be sure to hear when the next podcast comes out, so that you can keep abreast of everything. And you can also send us an email on animal.talk201@gmail.com. Yeah, we want to hear from you guys, because soon we want to be bringing out something in the podcast where we actually answer some of those questions that you have. And then we'll hopefully be having some guests.
Yeah, like a question and answer.
Exactly. That's the whole idea. And hopefully we'll be having some guests soon as well, and getting to chat to some people in the industry or out the industry, or wanting to come into the industry. Let's see who we can get, some professionals out there as well. And we'll get them on here and we can all have a chat and bring up some really, really cool topics.
Yeah, I think also if you are in the industry and you either have a topic you want us to talk about, or you want to be part of the podcast and, be one of the guests on here and you want to talk about something with us, definitely let us know. Don't forget, as Ryne said, subscribe and also share our platform. Please share our platform. As he mentioned, we are on all the socials. So help us get the word out there. And yeah, the more people we can reach, the better.
Sharing is caring, guys.
Sharing is caring.
If you care about us and you're passionate about our podcast and you want more people to hear about us, share it. Send those links out. We really, really want as many people as possible to listen in so they can learn as much as they can and bring some other topics up. Let us know what you think. We'll add them in there. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Alrighty. Well, keep safe, everyone. And of course, animals are our passion.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and remember, for our animals, our quality of care is their quality of life. Bye everyone.
Bye-bye. I could not think of anything. My brain just went blank.
What are we talking about? Stingrays. Okay, I think I've got something.
Okay, go.
So,
oh, that's great. Okay, right.
Okay, I do
Bring
have
myself
something
towards
though.
myself.
Just
okay.
Don't laugh, because then you're going to make me laugh.
Okay, I'm ready. Go.